My name is Bianca, and I never thought I would be standing here today at the most important event of my daughter's life, with my world about to collapse. The day was supposed to be about Isabella, her graduation, her future, her moment to shine. She had worked tirelessly to get to this point, and I couldn't have been prouder of her. But as we sat in the auditorium, waiting for the ceremony to start, I could sense that something was off. Jason, my husband, was acting distant, almost detached. He had been quiet for days leading up to the event, but I brushed it off, thinking it was just pre-event stress. I never imagined that his silence was the calm before the storm. The graduation ceremony was beautiful. Isabella walked across the stage with grace, receiving her diploma, while I wiped away tears of pride. This was the culmination of all her hard work, and for a moment everything felt perfect, but I had no idea that the storm was about to hit, harder than I ever could have imagined. As we gathered in the reception hall after the ceremony, celebrating Isabella's success, Jason's silence grew heavier. I glanced over at him, wondering what was going on, but he was just staring off into space. I didn't know it at the time, but he was already planning to tear our lives apart. The moment came when Jason stood up in front of our family and friends with an air of finality. The clinking of glasses died down, and all eyes turned to him. For a moment, I thought he was going to give a toast to our daughter, but instead he shocked us all with a declaration I never saw coming. "Bianca," Jason said, his voice flat and cold, "I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving." The words hit me like a punch in the stomach. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt the ground beneath me shift. What was he saying? My mind couldn't comprehend it. This couldn't be happening. Not today, not in front of Isabella. I looked at him, disbelief washing over me. "Jason, what are you talking about?" I asked, trying to maintain some composure. The room seemed to go silent, and all eyes were on us. I could feel the weight of every gaze. "I've been thinking about this for a long time, Bianca," he said, his voice wavering slightly but still strong. "We've drifted apart, and it's time I move on. I'm leaving you." My body went cold. I wanted to scream, to cry, to tell him that this was not how it was supposed to go. This was our daughter's moment, and he was choosing to destroy it. But I couldn't. Something inside me just shut down as the words kept repeating in my mind. "He's leaving." As the reality of his words settled in, I looked over at Isabella, whose face had gone pale. Her eyes were wide with confusion and shock, and I could see the hurt growing in her eyes. She didn't deserve this. "Dad?" Isabella whispered, her voice barely audible. "What do you mean you're leaving?" Jason didn't look at her. Instead, he turned to the rest of the family, as if this was some sort of performance, a scene he had prepared for. "I've made my decision," he said, his eyes cold. "This is final." I stood there, frozen in place. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. How could he do this? Not just to me, but to our daughter? On her special day? But as the tears started to well up in my eyes, I knew that I couldn't let this moment break me. Not today. Not in front of Isabella. I took a deep breath, swallowing my emotions. I couldn't let Jason's selfishness take away everything we had worked for. I wasn't going to let him steal this day. I turned to Isabella, trying to give her some semblance of comfort. "It's okay, sweetheart," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside. "None of this is your fault." But inside, my heart was breaking. I was shaking with anger and hurt, but I would not let him see me cry. Not now. Not in front of everyone. I turned back to Jason, my voice cold but firm. "You've made your choice, but don't think for a second that this is going to be easy for you, because it won't. You'll regret this, Jason. You're not just walking away from me, you're walking away from your family." He didn't respond. He just stood there, his face devoid of any emotion. But something shifted in me in that moment. I was done being the one who always took the hits. I was done being the one who stayed quiet, the one who always did what was best for everyone else. Not anymore. This was my moment, and I wasn't going to let Jason take it from me. As soon as my husband, Jason, made his announcement at our daughter's graduation, I felt like the ground was pulled out from under me. The excitement of Isabella's special day turned to a chilling silence, and I could hear my heart pounding in my chest as I tried to process what he had just said. It was almost as if the words had been spoken in slow motion, each syllable sinking into the pit of my stomach. I looked around the room at the stunned faces of family and friends who had gathered to celebrate Isabella's success. They had no idea what was happening, but I could see the confusion and discomfort on their faces. My daughter stood frozen, eyes wide in shock. Her graduation day was supposed to be about her accomplishments, her achievements, but instead, it had become about Jason's betrayal. I turned to face him, my voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and hurt. "What are you talking about, Jason?" I managed to say, the words feeling foreign as they left my lips. "You can't just walk out on our family, on our daughter, on her day." Jason stood there, looking at me with an almost cold detachment, as if everything we had shared, everything we had built together, meant nothing to him anymore. His expression was hard, his eyes distant. "I'm done, Bianca. I've been done for a while now. I've tried to make it work, but it's not working anymore. You're not the same person I married. This life isn't what I want anymore." The words hit me like a slap in the face. I had no idea how to respond. How could he do this? On the one day that was supposed to be about celebrating our daughter's future, he was choosing to destroy our family's future. But there was something else, something even deeper. I wasn't going to let him ruin this moment for Isabella, for our family, and for me. I took a deep breath, my emotions starting to calm, and I stepped forward. I wasn't going to beg him to stay. I wasn't going to plead for a marriage that he had already checked out of. Instead, I stood tall, my back straight, my voice firm. "You think you can just walk away from this? From me? From her?" I asked, the anger bubbling up inside me. "You think you can just announce it here, in front of everyone, and think I'll just let you get away with it? No, Jason, this isn't how it works." I could feel my voice shaking with emotion, but I wasn't afraid to let it out. I wasn't afraid to show him that I was stronger than this. No matter how much it hurt, no matter how much he had broken me, I wasn't going to let him destroy everything for Isabella, for me. I turned to Isabella, who was still standing there, tears streaming down her face. Her shoulders were trembling, and I could see how deeply this had affected her. Her whole world had just been shattered. "Sweetheart," I said softly, walking over to her, "this isn't your fault. None of this is your fault." I gently cupped her face in my hands, wiping away her tears. "You're amazing, and we're going to be okay. We will figure this out together." Isabella looked at me, her eyes searching for answers. "But why, Mom? Why is he leaving?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I hugged her tightly, my heart breaking for her. She didn't deserve this. None of us did. Sometimes people make choices that don't make sense, but we can't let their decisions ruin our happiness. I promise you, we'll get through this. We'll be strong. We have each other, and that's all we need." Jason stood silently, watching us. I could see the guilt and regret in his eyes, but it was too late for apologies now. He had already made his choice. I stood up straighter, looked at him one last time and said, "You've made your choice, Jason, and now it's my turn. I won't let you tear our family apart. I won't let you ruin this day. We'll handle this like we always have, with strength, grace, and dignity, but I won't beg you to stay." And with that, I walked away from him. I took Isabella's hand, and together, we left the reception. The world may have felt like it was falling apart, but we were stronger than that. We didn't need Jason. We didn't need his approval. We had each other, and that was enough. The tension in the room was unbearable. I could feel my pulse racing as I tried to comprehend what Jason had just said. The moment he dropped the bombshell, it felt like time had stopped. I couldn't wrap my head around it. He was leaving me, right there, at our daughter's graduation, the moment that was supposed to be filled with joy and pride. Isabella, our daughter, stood there frozen, tears welling up in her eyes. This was supposed to be her moment, the moment she worked so hard for. But instead, Jason's words were stealing all of it. I could see her face crumple in disbelief, and I immediately knew what I had to do. "Jason, what are you talking about?" I asked, my voice trembling. "You can't do this now. Not today. Not on her special day." I took a step closer to him, trying to regain some control over the chaos that was suddenly spiraling around me. He didn't even look at me as I spoke. His eyes were focused somewhere beyond me, like he was already mentally checked out. "I've thought about this for a long time," he said, his tone cold and matter-of-fact. "I can't keep pretending everything's okay. It's over, Bianca." I was stunned. I couldn't understand how he could be so heartless, so indifferent to what was happening around us. This wasn't just about our marriage, this was about our daughter's future. How could he make such an irreversible decision in the middle of such an important event? I looked at Isabella, standing there with tears streaming down her face, looking lost. It broke me. This wasn't the way her journey should have been celebrated. It wasn't just her graduation. It was supposed to be a milestone we shared together as a family. But instead, Jason had shattered that in a single moment. "Why now, Jason?" I asked again, trying to hold myself together. "Why today of all days? You're making her day about you. You're making this about your issues, your decision, and not about our daughter. How could you do this to her? To us?" He finally looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that I didn't recognize: guilt. But it didn't last long. He quickly masked it with anger. "Because I'm done, Bianca," he said, his voice rising. "I'm done pretending, done trying. I've given everything, and I'm not getting what I need. I'm leaving. I don't want this anymore." The words hit me like a slap. It felt like the ground beneath me was shifting, and I was struggling to stay balanced. The pain in his words was undeniable, but the anger started to rise inside me. How could he make such a selfish choice? How could he hurt our daughter like this? But the most important thing in that moment was clear. I couldn't let him take control of this day. I couldn't let him destroy everything we had worked for, especially not in front of our daughter. I looked around at the faces in the room, the family, the friends who had come to support Isabella, and I realized this wasn't just a fight between Jason and me. This was about standing up for what was right, and what was right was protecting Isabella's moment, even if it meant standing up to Jason. "I'm not letting you do this to her," I said, my voice steady, though my heart was pounding. "I won't let you ruin her day. You'll have your time to explain yourself, but not now, not here." Jason's face twisted with frustration, but I could see the crack in his resolve. He knew I wasn't going to back down. Isabella needed me now more than ever, and I wasn't going to let him rob her of this moment. I turned to her, my heart aching as I reached for her hand. She looked at me, still in shock, but slowly she stepped towards me, her hand trembling in mine. "Mom, what do we do now?" she whispered, looking between Jason and me. For the first time, I didn't have an immediate answer, but I knew one thing for sure: we would face this together. No matter what happened, I wouldn't let Jason's actions dictate our future. We had come too far for that. "We'll figure it out, sweetie," I said softly, my voice full of determination. "We're going to be okay." And with that, I turned back to Jason. "You've made your choice, but this isn't the end for us," I said, my eyes locked on his. "You're not taking away my family's happiness. Not today." The tension in the air felt unbearable as Jason's words echoed in my ears. He was leaving. My mind raced, unable to process what had just happened. How could he do this? At our daughter's graduation of all days? This was supposed to be her moment, her celebration, not the start of a new chapter of pain and betrayal. I turned to look at Isabella, standing nearby, her face pale and her eyes wide. She didn't understand yet, but I could see the hurt in her eyes, the confusion, the shock. I had promised her that this day would be a celebration of her achievements, not a reminder of the cracks in our family. But I wasn't going to let this be the end of her joy. I couldn't. I walked over to her slowly, my heart pounding in my chest, but with a resolve I hadn't felt before. "Sweetheart, listen to me," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "This is not your fault. What your father is doing has nothing to do with you. We will get through this together. You don't have to worry about anything. I'm here for you." Isabella clung to me, her tears soaking into my shirt. I could feel her pain, and it hurt to know I couldn't shield her from the ugliness of this moment, but I could still protect her from the worst of it. I was her mother, and I was strong enough to help her weather this storm. Jason stood silently, his back to us, but the tension radiated off him. He wasn't even looking at us anymore. I saw that in his silence. It wasn't anger, but something colder, something more distant. "You're really leaving us, Jason?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, though my heart was screaming. I wasn't sure if I was asking him or myself. He didn't respond at first. Then, finally, he turned around, and for a moment, I saw something in his eyes. Regret, guilt, but it quickly faded, replaced by a cold indifference. He shook his head, as if he couldn't be bothered to explain himself. "I don't have a choice, Bianca. It's done." I felt my chest tighten. This was happening, and I couldn't stop it. The man I had built a life with, the father of our children, was walking out the door, and there was nothing I could do to stop him. But as I looked at Isabella, her eyes still full of confusion and fear, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let him destroy her day. Not like this, not in front of everyone. "Isabella," I said, lifting her chin gently, "this is not your fault. Your father's decision has nothing to do with you. You are everything I've ever wanted in a daughter. And today is your day. We're going to celebrate, no matter what." I took a deep breath, gathering my strength. Jason had already made his choice. Now it was my turn to make mine. I wasn't going to let him ruin our daughter's graduation, our family, or my dignity. I looked around the room at the guests, the relatives who had gathered to celebrate Isabella's accomplishments. They were all staring, unsure of what to do, but I wasn't going to let them dictate how this night would go. With my daughter by my side, I walked toward the center of the room, grabbed the microphone, and took a deep breath. I know this is a hard moment for all of us, but I won't let this overshadow what we've worked for. This is Isabella's night, and no one will take that from her. Not today. The room fell silent, but I could see the look of respect in some of the faces around me. Jason stood there, his arms crossed, but he didn't say anything. For the first time that night, he seemed unsure, and it was almost like the tables had turned. "I'm proud of you, Isabella," I said, turning to my daughter. "You've worked so hard for this moment, and I am in awe of you. You are so much stronger than I ever was at your age. You are everything I hoped you would be, and so much more. We will get through this, together, and you will continue to shine, no matter what happens next." Tears welled up in her eyes, and she smiled through them. "Thanks, Mom," she whispered. "I don't know what I'd do without you." As we embraced, I realized that no matter what Jason had done, he couldn't take away our strength. We had each other, and nothing was going to change that. Today was about Isabella, about her future, and about reclaiming the life I had almost lost. I stood there, motionless, trying to process what had just happened. My heart was racing, and I felt a wave of panic rise within me. Was this really happening? Was Jason, the man I had spent over 20 years of my life with, really standing there, telling me he was leaving? On the very day we should have been celebrating our daughter's accomplishment? The silence in the room was suffocating. The guests, still gathered around, exchanged uncomfortable glances. They didn't know what to do. Some seemed unsure whether they should say something, while others looked like they were ready to make a hasty exit. I could feel the weight of their stares, the awkwardness hanging thick in the air. But I wasn't going to let Jason's actions ruin this day for Isabella. I wasn't going to let him make her feel like this day was about his selfishness. I had to be strong for her, no matter how much it hurt. I glanced over at Isabella, who was standing across the room, her face pale and her eyes wide. I could see the confusion and hurt in her expression. How could this happen? It was supposed to be her moment. The moment she had worked so hard for, the one that was supposed to symbolize everything she had accomplished. And now, her father was ripping that away from her. I took a few deep breaths and walked over to her, my heart aching. "Sweetheart, I know this is hard, but you've worked so hard for this, and we're not going to let anyone take that away from you." Isabella looked at me, her lips trembling. "Mom, why is he doing this? Why today?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. I gently took her hand, pulling her into an embrace. "I don't have all the answers right now, baby, but I need you to know something important. This is not your fault. You are amazing, and today is your day. We're not going to let him ruin it." She clung to me, her small body shaking. In that moment, I realized how much strength I needed to show, how much of myself I had to give to make sure she knew everything would be okay. I had to lead her through this. And I couldn't let Jason's selfishness be the defining moment of her graduation. I turned back to Jason, who was standing near the door, his arms crossed in defiance. He wasn't even looking at us anymore, his eyes glued to the floor. There was a part of me that wanted to scream, to demand answers, to tell him how much he had hurt me. But I knew that wasn't the answer. I wasn't going to let his immaturity and selfishness pull me down anymore. Instead, I walked over to him, my steps purposeful. The crowd parted and I stood face to face with him. "Jason," I said, my voice steady and calm, "I don't know what's going on in your head right now, but I will not allow you to destroy this day. This is about Isabella, and you will not take this moment from her." He looked at me, his expression cold, but I could see the hint of guilt in his eyes. For the first time that night, he seemed to falter, but he quickly recovered, brushing past me to exit the room. He left, without another word. I stood there, watching him leave, but for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel the weight of the situation crushing me. Instead, I felt something else, a sense of relief. I was free. Free from his control, free from the lies, free from the manipulation. This was the moment I had been waiting for, whether I realized it or not. I turned back to Isabella, whose face was streaked with tears but now seemed calmer. "We're going to be okay," I whispered. "We're stronger than this, sweetheart. And I promise you, no matter what happens, we'll get through it together." And in that moment, I realized that this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something new. A new chapter where I was no longer defined by Jason, by our past, or by anyone else's expectations of me. I was in control now, and I would make sure that Isabella and I would find happiness, peace, and success on our own terms. The silence in the room was suffocating as Jason continued to shout, his words sharp and full of rage. I could feel the tension in the air, thick enough to cut through. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I stood my ground. I wasn't going to let him break me today, not on our daughter's special day. I refused to be the victim anymore. "Jason," I said, my voice steady but firm, trying to be the calm in the storm. "I don't know what's going on in your head right now, but I'm not going to let you do this. Not here, not now." He stopped shouting for a moment, looking at me with disbelief, as if he didn't expect me to stand up for myself. I could see the anger in his eyes, but also a hint of confusion, maybe even regret. But whatever it was, it didn't matter. This was happening, and there was no turning back. I turned to Isabella, who was still standing frozen at the back of the room, tears in her eyes. She had already been through so much, and I couldn't let her witness any more of this. She didn't deserve it. "Honey, come here," I called out to her softly, waving her over to where I was standing. When she finally made her way to me, I hugged her tightly, feeling the warmth of her small body against mine. "Everything's going to be okay. We'll get through this together. You're not alone." She clung to me, her sobs muffled against my shoulder. "Why is he doing this, Mom? Why now?" "I don't have all the answers, sweetie," I whispered, stroking her hair gently. "But what I do know is this. We're stronger than this. We're a family, and we're not going to let anything or anyone tear us apart." I turned back to Jason, my eyes hardening. I had reached my breaking point. I wasn't going to let him tear us down anymore. You think you can just walk away from all of this, Jason? I asked, my voice sharp now. You think you can ruin this day for Isabella, for me, and think you'll get away with it? Number, I won't let you. For a moment, he just stood there, staring at me. The anger in his eyes slowly started to fade, replaced with something else. Maybe guilt, maybe realization. But I didn't care. It was too late for apologies. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in years, I felt the weight of his actions lift off my shoulders. This was the end of our marriage. This was the end of a chapter that had dragged on for too long, and I was finally ready to move on. I'm done, Jason, I said, my voice steady now. I'm done being the one to fix everything. I've spent so many years trying to make this work, trying to keep us together, but I can't do it anymore. Not like this, not when you don't even care about us. I deserve better, and so does Isabella. The room was silent as those words hung in the air. I could feel the tension slowly lifting, as if a weight had been taken off my chest. This wasn't a victory in the traditional sense, but it felt like one. I had stood up for myself. I had taken control of my own destiny, and I was no longer going to let Jason's actions define me. Jason, for the first time in what felt like an eternity, looked ashamed. He didn't say anything, but the silence between us spoke volumes. I wasn't sure where he would go from here or what he would do, but I no longer cared. This was my moment. I wasn't going to waste it. I looked at Isabella one more time, her tear-streaked face now full of uncertainty, but I knew that she would be okay. We would both be okay. No matter how painful this was, we were strong, and we would rebuild together. I wasn't afraid of the future anymore. I wasn't afraid of being alone, because I knew, deep down, that I wasn't really alone. I had Isabella. I had myself. And that was enough. As Jason walked out of the room, his presence no longer dominating the space, I turned to Isabella and smiled, finally allowing myself to feel some peace. Let's move forward, sweetheart. Together, I said. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it.